Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. On the news front, I just made a news update video, so there's not that much to report, except of course that there was a new scope video where Mordus Legion basically took out Serpentis ships in order to recapture some ore stations. I think it was out in Cloud Ring. It looked really cool, and of course it did show off the new armor effects on ships like the Barghest. That looked really absolutely amazing. So yeah, still we're looking forward to the December release. Let's just hope that CCP can take out all of the bugs that do still linger in there. For now, we are here for the market, of course, and we will jump right in with plex. We're going down. So 50 seconds for that one. You can see plex are now down to 1.19 billion ISK, which is still pretty damn high historically. But if you look at the chart, we're once again bouncing off the 1.25 billion. Of course, it's a new sale from CCP. Thanksgiving sale that is the cause of this. The question is again, how long will this last? How big will the actual impact be? It's Eve Prosper that actually called this one. He said if you have some profits, it was time to sell last week, and he was obviously right, because this new sale has decreased the price once again. We've got the 5-day moving average crossing the 20-day moving average. So there is that little bit of pressure. We're seeing it happen several times in the last few months, but it is always related to a plex sale. So I personally don't think that this actually changes anything to the fundamentals of plex, that they are still on the way up, and that the more hype that CCP can build up for the Citadel expansion, the more that we are actually going to get a speculative bubble on plex. It's going to be interesting to see what actually happens after the holidays and how long it will actually take, like after January, until the expansion actually hits. I think that could be an interesting month. But at the moment, yeah, they're down a little bit in price, and so you might be able to pick a few up at a better price, because the buyers are down to, well, not that much, but still 1.168 billion ISK, which is still quite a bit to make in a month, but it is down from last week where we were almost at 1.25 billion ISK. So plex going down a little bit. Obviously the multiple pilot training certificate is mirroring that move, also bouncing off the 1.25 pretty much billion price mark. And over here 5-day moving average has not crossed the 20-day moving average just yet, so it's a little bit of a different movement. We're still at 1.2 billion for the multiple pilot training certificate, but these two will move in tandem. That's what they always do, and of course at the moment it's just that plex sale that's doing it. The body resculpt, here we go, showing that it does do its own little thing here, actually increasing in price and going from below the 20-day moving average to above the 20-day moving average, moving against plex. Of course, when there's a huge plex sale and plex has decreased quite a lot, all of a sudden the body resculpt certificate moved along with it. At some point that pressure is going to push through into this market as well, but we can see right here that it's basically one spike and one correction, and now the body resculpt is moving sideways, whereas plex is actually correcting from the latest sale as well. So it does show that the body resculpt is not as tightly linked to plex as the training certificate is. Overall, alright, I'm still holding on to my plex that I've purchased, because I think that there will be a better sale order later on, but Eve Prosper did call this one, this top right here at 125, which was a good time to sell last week. Moving on to some minerals, 420. Let's start off with titanium, which is going down, although again reaching 6.4 was pretty high, and last week I said this may be a bit of a top, especially considering that all the other ones seem to be reaching a top as well. So there was a bit of a correction now, but we can also see at the tail end, I think that we are starting to bounce back off the 625 mark as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what titanium is going to do in the next few weeks, if this increase in price can still maintain its momentum, or was 6.4 the top? That's going to be the major question. One thing that we don't see that often is the entire ticker is actually down over the last week. So every single one that I consider to be base items, like the Tengu, I consider that one to be a base Tech 3 ship because it's used so much. Obviously, both Tritanium and Megasite, I consider those to be high-sec base mineral and a null-sec base mineral. And then, of course, we've got Plex and Caldari fuel blocks. All of them are down over the entire week. That's something that you don't see that often. Moving on to Pyrite here, clearly, ooh, ouch, that's a serious correction to 11.10. Look at that, 11.5. Let's take a look here at supply demand. Is that one slowing down? There's still some supply coming in, 500 million units, 360 million units, although that one is a bit older, so 500, 600, 700 million units, something like that. On the demand side though, 300 and 192, so supply is still winning out. That's a serious correction for Pyrite, going from 11.5 to 11.10 ISK in a week. It is bouncing off of these price points, but the interesting thing is, will it ever go back towards the 20-day moving average here? So again, Tritanium corrected back a little bit, seems to be holding decently. Pyrite though, serious correction. Next one is going to be Mexalon here. It's definitely different because Mexalon, I think, is like a transportation bottleneck or something like that, and that one is just slowly going down towards 60 ISK. Let's see if there's a sign that supply demand is going to change that. But supply 48 million, 40 million. Here we've got another 10 million and another 20 million. And here another 40 and another 20, all of those less than 24 hours ago. Take a look at demand here. We've got 30, we've got 64 million. But then over here, I mean, these are really much lower prices for another 50 and another 50 right here. So I would still give the edge to the supply here, so some pressure on the price. The question is, will it break 60 ISK? The buyers, they're trying. They're down to 59 ISK pretty much, and the sellers at 61. If it breaks 60 ISK, then we could be in for a bit of a correction in Mexalon as well, in my opinion. But for now, it's trying to hold on just above that. Next up here, we've got Isogen, moving in a different direction from the other ones, but also one that had corrected quite substantially. So we're actually going up a little bit for Isogen, 117 for the sellers, 114 for the buyers. On the supply side though, 31 million, 22 million here, another 53 million from a few days ago. I would definitely have to give the edge here to supply and pressure on the price. So I would not be surprised if it would actually go down in the next few days and then start hitting 115 pretty soon here. Isogen, I think, is under pressure from oversupply at the moment. Next up, we've got Noxium, the in-between one, managed to break 500 ISK, but it's already below that once again. Still, it's trying to hold on just below that, so 490 for the buyers, 491 for the sellers. No margin whatsoever here. The market has found itself. Sellers 7 million, another 3 million here. On the buyer side, we've got 3 million, we've got 4 million, another 6.3 million here. That's a little bit older, so decently stable when it comes to supply demand. That looks pretty balanced. There is some pressure on the price because we did go up from 470 to above 500. Maybe still a slight edge on supply, so it could be that we will slowly go lower for Noxium, but I think a 490 to 500 price band is not impossible for Noxium. If 491 here, that's just one order. Yeah, it's 500 pretty much for the seller. So I think it's possible, a 490 to 500 price band for Noxium if we see some stability, because unfortunately the correction in Pyrite shows some volatility, correcting in Tritanium as well, and then the Isogen actually moving up despite that pressure. Yeah, I was hoping for more stable period, but I'm still seeing some volatility. Moving on to some null-sec stuff, let's take a look here at Zydrine, also correcting back substantially. Look at that. from 1100, breaking straight through the 1000 ISK barrier and bouncing off of the 950. Currently 940 for the buyers and 1017 or 1018 for the sellers. Still 2 million coming in, 2 million coming in, and here another 1.6 million, here another 4 million. There are some buyers finally here, 5 million, 1.5 million, but they're trying to pick this up at 940, 950, 935 even. So I think, yeah, there is still some pressure on Zydrine. There was a clear correction right here, which we would not have expected. Honestly, I would say that 1000 seemed to be a very strong floor for the price, but we broke right through that, bounced off the 950 price mark. The question is there still oversupply at these prices? At some point, I mean, it's going to have to start to slow down or end, because yeah, tracing back from 1600 to 950 ISK on the chart, that's actually a real big trace back. If I go for a 1 year chart, can we still see where we actually come from? 400. So there is still a ways to go back quite a bit, considering where we were before the mineral rebalance, but still retracing like half the increase in price is pretty substantial. That's a lot of oversupply. And then Megasite, you could have seen that on the ticker, also going down, breaking the 1300 barrier quite substantially. In fact, 1200 is already coming into view. 1163 for the buyers, 1228 for the sellers for Megasite. And despite that, look at the latest orders: 1.1 million, 2.4 million, and 1.1 million again. So despite that, there is still oversupply, even 9.4 million units of Megasite right here. So despite the very substantial decrease in price in the last 4 or 5 months, there is still more supply than demand coming in for the Nosec minerals, putting more pressure on the price. And if Megasite goes through 1200 like butter, then I actually think that Zydrine is set for even more correcting as well towards 900 pretty soon. You can even see data points below 950 as well. And then finally we've got Morphite, quick touch on that, but Morphite is really holding on quite nicely. It tried to break 11,000 ISK a few times. You can see that on the data points and on 5-day moving average here, but bouncing off to 11.5, bouncing off above 11.5 and now correcting back. So it really does look like Morphite is holding a steady price between 11,000 and 12,000 ISK without too much problems. Next up, Tech One chips. Let's take a look at what the impact will have been there. 1240. Okay, I actually think that we have gone lower across the board for the minerals. This should slowly start to seep into the Tech One market. Smaller ship first, bigger ships later, because there's always a bit of lag in those. But I think that we should start to see some pressure on Tech One prices here as well, because everything has gone down across the board in the last week or so. So Armageddon, well, just a little bit of pressure probably coming in from, yeah, no new supply in Armageddons except for one ship right here. So I really think that Armageddons are a good deal at the moment. You can buy your minerals for less money, and they're selling at pretty high prices with nothing recently coming to the market. So it could really be a good ship to bring in here to produce. Next up here we've got the Caracal. Yeah, maybe a little sign of some pressure, where we would clearly move around the 12 million price band in the last few months. We did just go way down, substantially below 20-day moving average, starting to pull that one down, and settling at 11.5. Decent supply here as well. 444 Caracals coming in on a volume of maybe 200 a day. That's definitely not bad, and gonna put some pressure on the Caracal market here. So maybe the first sign that indeed there is a bit of pressure on here. Next up here we've got the Dominics, a lovely spike above 210, but coming back down already. Supply wise, yeah, not bad. And look at that, 54 of them, the latest order, trying to sell below 200 million. Yeah, the Armageddon, it's empty of those, and that's still 10 million more than on the Dominics. I really think that one is like a little bit of an exception, but pressure on the Dominics right here. Next up, we've got the Drake. That one went up from 54 to 57 million, but it's already going back down. And we're currently actually selling back for 54 as well, with decent supply coming in. In fact, all of this 1.5 pages pretty much is less than a day old, so not bad for the Drake. For showing some signs of pressure as well right here, despite what the chart is showing. Next up here we've got the Mauler. That's pretty much a stable ship around 11 million, despite that one spike that has been digested decently quickly. We're currently looking at 11.7 for the sellers, 10.7 for the buyers. So around 11 million for a Mauler. Pretty okay. Obviously this is a super stable chart. Next up here we've got the Myrmidon, moving in the 56 to 58 million price band. Is there some pressure to be seen from supply? Yeah, maybe a little here. 14, 4, another 6 here, another 3. I would maybe put 30 Myrmidons in the last 24 hours. Unfortunately, volumes up to 50. So Myrmidon seems to be in decently high demand. And I would say that the sell orders of the last 24 hours are not filling that up. Interesting, the Myrmidon could actually have some room to increase in price, or at least to maintain its current price range. Next up we've got the Oracle here. That one is showing some signs of pressure after reaching as high as like 92 million. We're currently going down back towards 80 million. In fact, sellers are at 83, buyers 79 million. There's not that many of them coming to the market, so Oracle may be drying up a little bit. Volumes, I would say, 25 to 30 a day, and here we've got only around 15 oracles coming in the last 24 hours. So it could be that this will end pretty soon, this decrease in price. Still, if we're trading in like the 80 to 84 million price range, I think that would be quite okay for the Oracle. Next up here we've got the Raven starting to move around the 195 million price band. 20-day moving average going down from 200 to 195 on average. So 197 for the sellers, 190 for the buyers. Decent margin, and still there's 1431 coming in here. And in the last 24 hours, the entire front page pretty much on a volume of still 40 or so a day. All right, there is a bit of pressure, but not all that much just yet. Here is the Stabber doing a double spike up to 13 million. That's a bit unexpected, because Stabbers used to be just 10.5 million. They're currently selling for 12 million. The buyers are at 11 million, so they've had to follow suit. Supply wise, this is pretty decent though. 30, 20, 20, 10, at least 100 of them that came in here. Volumes below 50. So the pressure is on for the Stabber, but it's trying to settle at a higher price. There is definitely something going on with Stabber fleets, I think. Yeah, 10.5, that seems to be in the past for the Stabber for now. Next up here we've got the Tornado, went as low as 74 million and now going back up. I would not be surprised if there's actually been a buyout from an alliance here, because is there a volume spike? Nothing visible just yet, so it's interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on the volume, see if that still needs to trickle down here. But it looks like that to me, that everything like below 79 million has simply been bought out for the Tornado. 72 for the buyers, 79 for the sellers. Well, that's still 74 on average. So something, let's see, recent ones. Yeah, there's obviously a gap right here. So all of these guys coming in at 79 million are really pretty recent, and that's around 30, 40 of them, something like that. Average a day in volume around 50. So I actually think that the spike, despite it showing up right now on the chart, is actually over, and that the pressure will be on, because obviously people sell straight to buyers as well, and that puts the average price on the chart right here. So yeah, Tornadoes, I actually think that the gap is already being plugged actively at the moment, despite what the chart here looks like and the volume here. So I think it just happened or something like that a couple of hours ago. Next up here we've got the Typhoon. We can see that one went up to 194, but again 20-day moving average is slowly going down, breaking 190. So I actually think that the Typhoon is going to go a little bit lower. People were maybe a little bit optimistic in the increase in price here. But overall, let's take a look at some supply. Half the page, around 40, a little bit more than that, an average volume of maybe 20, something like that. Pretty, pretty spiky looking volume. So usually you get less than 20, but then sometimes you get like 60 of them being sold all of a sudden. Here, that's quite a big volume spike. So this is not a steady volume for the typhoons. But at the moment, I would say that there is a slight pressure on the typhoon price. And then finally here, the Vexor. What does that chart look like? Showing that stability, slowly going down again on the 20-day moving average. So I actually think that there are still some gaps to plug. There are still some Tech 1 chips that would be quite good to actually bring to the market, like the Armageddon and like some of the tier 3 battle cruisers. But all of it is starting to stabilize, and if the pressure on mineral prices actually keeps up, then this will really start to translate into some lower or at least more stable Tech 1 prices, I think. I think that it's in the cards. Next up, we've got the Tech 2 market, 21 minutes. All right, let's see if there's some more volatility to spot. Here's the Basilisk though. Data points at 180, but we've seen a bottom of 175 before. Where are the buyers at? 175. I actually think it's okay to put some buy orders close to this price, try and pick up some cheap basilisks. If you have an opportunity to sell those, then at 200 or above 200 million, that's quite okay. The unfortunate bit is, of course, that the very bottom is going up here on average, and the tops are going down here as well. So I would say it's a risky trade. But if there is ever any volatility in the Basilisk, then I actually think that buying close to 175 is not a bad thing to do. So the risk, I think, is that it could take a long time before you actually have a sell opportunity. Next up here, we've got the Cerberus clearly going down substantially as well. I think that this is pretty interesting. 175 on the buyers for the Cerberus. There's not that many. There is still decent supply. 177 for the sellers. I think you can pick up some cheap Cerberus here at the moment. The pressure here is clearly pretty substantial after the last spike, trying to reach as high as 210 million. This is a serious pullback, and we're at a 6-month low. So Cerberus, yeah, maybe for an investment again, not bad. The Guardian spike is over, went as high as almost 150 with a bottom of 130. 20 million, that's well over 10%. There was obviously some money to be made there, but now we're on our way back down. So yeah, Guardian, the opportunity is over, unfortunately. Next up here, we've got the Hound. Again, what I don't like is if you look at the bottoms, they are going slowly up towards 17, and look at the tops here, at least the latest 3 constantly going down as well. So I don't like a chart that looks like this. The volatility is decreasing, and we're right in the middle of that. So we're close to a bottom of like 16 million. The buyers are at 16.6 million, well above that, and someone is still picking up 33 of them. So I feel that this is just way too risky to make a move on the Hound at the moment. Next up here, we've got the Ishtar. After reaching 155, it's going back up. Where are the sellers at? 167. Okay, buyers have had to follow suit to 161. Ishtar still seems to be in pretty high demand. So this was maybe a very small opportunity, close to 155 on the chart. But honestly, it's still not enough to say you're going to make a lot of money on trading Ishtars at the moment, I would say. Next up here, the Manticore slowly going up. So again, not volatile enough for my book. It went close to 20 million on the charts. Now they are selling for almost 23 million. You could again say, well, if you're shooting for 10%, that could be okay. But personally, I definitely would like to see much more volatility than this if I would put my money in the Tech 2 market. Next up here, we've got the Nemesis. Also going down pretty substantially. Buyers are at 17.1 million. 17.1, yeah, that's definitely right here on the chart. It could be interesting if you expect volatility to come back into the Nemesis market. We are at a 6-month low, so I think it could be okay, but again, There are really signs that volatility has been slowing down in the Tech 2 market. So I would say be careful and don't bet on this with money that you may need in the short term. But again, Nemesis, Cerberus, Basilisk, they look okay from the standpoint that we're definitely at a pretty low price point here. On Euros though, that's more interesting. That's a chart that I like. Starting at 140, went up to 175, went back down to 145 with a little bit of a delay. So 2 buy opportunities, went back up to 175 and is now on its way back down. So they're selling for 160, buying for 146. That's the volatility that I like to see. If you would have been able to buy them at 140, that was great. You had 2 good sell opportunities where you could have made 30-35 million in profits on Euros. And here at 145 you had a second buy opportunity. These are the charts that I like to see. So the Euros, yeah, the sell opportunity is over, but this does show at least that one Tech 2 ship shows trade potential. Next up here we've got the Purifier. Going up from, what would that be, just below 18 million to below 20 million. So again, not 10%. Nope, I don't like it. And where the price is now on the chart, I don't like that either. So yeah, let's move on to the Scimitar, which did know a nice spike from, let's see, 130 up to 160. Nice 30 million profit, probably close to 20%, something like that. Went back down to 135 on the chart. Where are the buyers at? 129, again below 130. If I would say any ship type that's showing signs of volatility, it would be the logistics cruisers. So they're doing quite okay. Keep in mind that there is a lot of logistics rebalancing that's going to happen as well. It could be good to try and buy some Scimitars below 130. If at some point you get another spike to 155 or 160, then you'll be able to make a decent profit on this one as well. Next up here we've got the Vengeance, again clearly moving in the 19 to 20 million price band. Way too stable, I don't like it. So I see some buy opportunities in the logistics cruisers. There is that volatility that I would personally look for if I would want to gamble some trade money. Other than that, unfortunately, a lot of them are showing signs that volatility is decreasing, which I really don't like. But okay, at least the logistics cruisers are showing us some potential. Next up, Tech 3 markets, 2730. Yep, sounds good. Let's just go across the lists. We know that the Tengu corrected a little bit, but not too much, so managing to maintain a decently high price for Tengus. Let's take a look at some supply here. That's not that many new Tengus, so I would say pressure there's a little bit, but not that much on the Tengu price, and we're actually at a pretty high point for the last 6 months. Next up here, let's take a look at the Proteus. Proteus taking off, and did I call it? Honestly, I don't fully remember, but I think I may have called the Proteus being primed for an increase in price last week, and so here it is, up to 250 million, 255 million for the sellers. Yeah, if you'd been able to buy Protei for 170, that's not too bad. Bring those to the market, that's some serious profit to be made there. So I'll have to review my previous EVE talk honestly and see if I did notice this Proteus opportunity, but that does make it pretty interesting if I did call it, because then there is starting to be trade potential in the Tech 3 market, because that's a pretty huge markup here all of a sudden if that happened. Next up here we've got the Loki slowly going up to 180. Let's see here, 176 for the buyers, 185 almost for the sellers, but there is decent supply. Yeah, not that much too new supply. That could dry up decently quickly actually for the Loki, so this one has been going back up. If there's all of a sudden high demand for some Lokis, then this could actually get all picked up and we could get a spike to 200 or 215 in the upcoming days and weeks. We'll keep an eye on that. I think the Loki with the lack of new supply could be primed to be the next one whereas the Proteus, it just happened to that one. And then finally we've got the Legion for the cruisers, also going up from 160 to almost 200 million, and now slowly going back up, so the pressure is bound to be on here. New supply, yeah, at least half the page here. So yeah, the Legion of course will probably slowly correct it back down a little bit, I think. But it's interesting here, the Proteus, that was a great opportunity. Buying at 170 not that long ago, early November, maybe 2 weeks ago, and now selling for 255 million. There's obviously potentially some real money to be made. Volumes do seem to have a pretty big impact here, I think. Except for the Tengu. Look at that Tengu spiking up way up high here, and volumes, no big spike to be spotted here. So it's a tricky market, but I think it's starting to be an interesting trade market as well. Next up, the destroyers here. Confessor going back down from a high of 65 million. I think we spotted the supply pressure, which now, look at that, no orders except for one here, less than a day old. That's pretty interesting. So people noticed that the Confessor was pretty high and that gap was being plugged, and so now they're actually moving to other things. And I think next up people will probably move to some Protea. Here is then the Hecate charts going as high as almost 60 million, but dropping off. What's supply looking like? That's not bad. Half the page here, these especially 30, 40, 50, 60 Hecates pretty much coming in the last 24 hours compared to 0 for the Confessor. What's that going to do for the chart in the upcoming days and weeks? Could be interesting. Next up here we've got the Jackdaw, lovely little spike up to 65 million. And that's being plugged. You can see that the entire front page, in fact 1.5 pages, are Jackdaws less than 24 hours old. Sell buy opportunity at 50 million, spike up to 65 million, currently still selling for 62. Yeah, that's actually pretty okay for trade as well, so pretty interesting. And finally we've got this Vapel chart. That one went as high as 65, pressure is on, and is it still happening? Yeah, unfortunately is Vapel still an entire front page in less than 24 hours. That's a few hundred of them at least. So the interesting ones I think is going to start to be the Confessor because of no new orders. Of course there's still that big 58 right here to chew through, but that's starting to be interesting. And then here on the Hecate, it's not that much anymore for the new orders either, but it's a much slower decline in price as well. There's still some supply to chew through before that one is primed to go up. I would have to say, which one was it? The Loki. The Loki is actually starting to be pretty interesting because you have half a page here at like 185, 187, then you've got 195, 200, 215. So the Loki could be interesting for next week if you can still pick some up at the current buy order prices. Yeah, that Proteus spike right here up to 250, that's quite a lot all of a sudden. That would have made you quite a lot of money. And then finally for the extra product, 33 minutes, 33, I'm going to take a look at fuels. It's been a decent while since I've looked at that, and what was pretty surprising, I don't think I mentioned it, but the Caldari fuel blocks which I use for my ticker had not moved in 3 weeks. There was 3 weeks where basically they were on the same price, 0% change, and so we'll take a look at all of that. Here is the Amar fuel block, over 6 months going from 15k to 18k, now dropping back off a little bit to 17.5k. So there is some pressure, pretty high demand for these Amar fuel blocks here at the moment. They're selling pretty high. Next up here we've got Caldari fuel blocks. Here just below, I would say 19,500 ISK. That was that period of stability where, well, the price of the sellers just stayed the same the entire time, but now it's corrected back a little bit to 18.5k, already going back up, but the movement over 6 months is pretty clear. Increase in price from 15.5 to 19.5, which I personally think is a good sign for activity in EVE Online, because if you need fuel blocks, that means you've got a POS, which means that you have to be decently busy with EVE Online, and more POSes I think could mean more activity across the board. Next up here we've got the Galente fuel blocks, again starting at 14.5k, spikes up to 18.5k, a little correction in the last week or so, but nothing too drastic. The movement in the last 6 months is pretty obvious. And here we've got the Minmatar fuel blocks, in fact staying at its high point for 6 months, starting at 14k, ending at 18.5k. So fuel blocks, okay, looks to me like there's high demand. Prices are pretty high in the last 6 months, but I see this as a good sign, as a sign that there's increased activity in EVA Online after the summer slump. So let's hope that that actually does indeed turn out to be the case. And thank you very much for watching. That's it for this week, and I'll see you guys next time.